the thing that leads me on is taking responsibility for my life. Everything that happens to you is a lesson. I think that there's always, as long as you're living, there's something for you to learn. I never want to stop learning.
That was Ossie Jefferson-Corley. She's known as the mother or aunt of her neighborhood, with a story just waiting to be told. Ossie brings sunshine and goodness to everyone she meets. She's definitely making the world a better place. The eldest of 8 children, she knows how to lead and is now in a position to receive assistance herself, which is not always easy to do when you're an avid giver. Her impact on family and friends and anyone who meets her is evident. She's subtle with a sense of stealth that often catches many off guard until you really get to know her. A friend of activist, Rosa Parks, Ossie shares a lifetime of perspective, insight, and acumen from the many chapters of her life. Stay tuned to learn what keeps this octogenarian so focused on the future.
I'm Sally Hussey, the CEO of 50 Forward, and we elected to launch this podcast because we know older adults have such inspiring stories and wisdom worth sharing. We have now all learned that social connections are critical to our well-being. This podcast is made possible by 50 Forward, the leading resource for adults 50 plus in Middle Tennessee who seek to live longer, more fulfilling lives.
You're listening to Squeeze the Day, where we talk to extraordinary people over the age of 50 who are living their best life now. Their stories of a well-lived life are both inspiring and encouraging to all of us as we seek to navigate a meaningful and purpose-driven second chapter in our life. I'm Susan Sizemore, Communications Director for 50 Forward. So let's get started. Ossie, you've always been committed to health and wellness. Is that something you learned at an early age?
Yes, I'm the oldest of 8 kids. So early, I started taking care of them, watching after them. I was their second mother, in other words.
And so I know that on occasion when I've seen you out and about, you always seem to bring the most nutritious things and you're always focused on trying to be as mobile as you can. Is that from running after those siblings?
Probably, because we lived in the country for many years. And so I love being outside, hiking, wading in the creek, climbing trees, those kind of things. So we were very active. And we had to walk a mile to school, too. So I was very active. And then after I moved to Nashville, we walked everywhere we went, too. Even if we had money, we would walk to save the money, to buy candy.
That's smart. That's helping your children learn to be active as well as conserving resources and saving money.
Right.
Throughout your career and into retirement, you've been known to sow seeds of kindness by printing little pieces of paper with words of encouragement and passing them out or leaving them in common areas where folks could get inspired. How did that start?
It started as a kid. When I was a little girl, before I started school, I could read. And I would see things that I liked, and I'd write them down in a book, in a notebook. And then as I got older, I started putting them on cards. If I saw some quote or something that I liked, I would write it down. So I have thousands of quotes on cards all over my house. And then I decided, when I started working with the Alive Hospice in 2000, I decided I wanted to do something to encourage them and to help people if they felt like they needed some encouragement. So I started with little books, with encouraging articles. I would put funny things in there, and they could just go and look at the books. I had, I think, 3 different books that people could look at. Then I decided that I wanted to pass out a thought for the day, every day, to the staff and to patients and their families. I worked in hospice for 10 and a half years, and I did it every day except about 2 years. 2 years I kind of dropped out, and they begged me to come back again and do it. So I would do it every day, and then after I left hospice and started coming over to 50 Forward, Knowles, I started doing it weekly. But I love doing it. I love sharing thoughts. Some thoughts are funny, some are logical, things that you just look at and say, that's right. And then others you have to think about. You got to think about it.
They are so beautiful. And I've seen guests in our building go up and just pick up one and start sharing it around. I think you're a great motivator. When you worked at hospice, I know that you had a background as a nurse and you earned your nursing degree. Can you tell us a little bit about that and then your nursing career?
Well, my nursing career started when I was probably around 13 or 14. I went to church with a lot of doctors and nurses, and they would ask me to babysit, and I even cleaned some of their houses. And it just inspired me to become a nurse. And when I was 16, I wanted to work in the summer as a nurse's aide at Riverside Hospital, a Seventh-day Adventist hospital that's no longer in existence. But the doctor, Dr. Carl Dent, was the head, the CEO, and I asked him for the job, and his daughter had wanted the job also. So she had applied first, but he let me have the job because he knew I needed it. And that really started me wanting to be a nurse. I really knew that I wanted to be a nurse. So then I left Nashville and went to Alabama to Seventh-day Adventist College in Huntsville, Alabama, Oakwood College. They had a boarding academy on the campus, and I stayed there and finished my last year of high school and started my first semester of college, but I had to leave because of family problems. So after everything was straight, I went to practical nursing school at Riverside, and I finished there and worked there for about 3 years, and then I moved to Michigan. And after a year after moved to Michigan, I got married, and then I went back to school. I decided I wanted to be a RN. And first I applied to a 2-year school, but they didn't accept me in Battle Creek, Michigan. So I applied to Wayne State University in Detroit, and my husband was going to go there and get a master's degree. So both of us applied for the school and were accepted. So we moved to Detroit. We were living in a little town called Berrien Springs. And after I started Wayne State University, I found out that their nursing program was number 6 in the country. So I went there for 4 years and finished in 1974, I believe it was. It's been so long.
Can we talk a little bit about Riverside? Because that's a hospital I'm not familiar with here in Nashville. Did Riverside at some point, it's kind of a little Nashville history, did it change names?
No, it just closed. It was Seventh-day Adventist Hospital on Young's Lane.
Okay.
And it was run by Seventh-day Adventists, and it was an old hospital, but I don't remember when. I was in Michigan when it closed, but it was on Young's Lane, 800 Young's Lane. And in fact, I could walk from here. I could walk there, We grew up around this area. So. And like I said, a lot of our church members were doctors and nurses.
That's nice. That's a strong community. And when you worked at hospice, I'm not sure, did we talk about which hospice it was here in Nashville?
Alive.
It was Alive Hospice.
And I came back from Detroit in 99 and started working for hospice, Alive Hospice, at their new residence. It opened in June of 2000. And I admitted the first patient there. So I was there for the first patient to come in. And I worked there 10 and a half years.
That is so interesting and so cool. I know the Alive Hospice campus is so big and beautiful now, and it takes a special person to work in that environment, but also the fact that you work to bring joy to everyone, I think adds a whole nother layer of just beauty to the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoyed it. And I enjoy working with people,
So I want to talk a little bit about a photo that you discovered in the Library of Congress. Will you share a little bit with us about how you learned that news?
Well, we were in a class, and our teacher told us to research, a subject that we're interested in. He said, if you're brave, you can look up yourself. So I decided to look up myself. And first it came that I was a certified laughter leader. So that wasn't a surprise. I knew that was there. Then my daddy's picture came up. And then the third picture that came up was a picture of my friend Ola and I in Michigan. We were at Dearborn, Michigan. And I was, surprised. I didn't remember when the picture was taken. But then it said Library of Congress. So I said, it said Library of Congress. I said it out loud, so everybody's come looking over. And so I finally found out it was part of this Rosa Parks collection. A gentleman bought all of her things and donated them to the Library of Congress. So I'm sure there are other pictures of me there, because the picture in the latest Focus newspaper was there too. And I used to take lots of pictures. Everywhere I went, I used to take my camera. So I'm sure there's tons of pictures that I've taken, myself. And I was telling my friend that that was probably my camera that took our picture. I probably gave the camera to somebody to say, here, take me an oldest picture.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting, too, because when you think about the Library of Congress and, you found out about it because you Googled yourself, which many people, especially an older adult, might not even know what Google is or how to Google themselves. And in the digital literacy class that was taught by the public library is where they encouraged you to kind of explore that a bit, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And I need to work more on my computers. I just don't. I have a laptop, a tablet, and the desktop, but I need to use them more so I can learn more.
Yeah, I think that's true of everybody. Things change over time, but it also, the more you explore, the more you learn. It looks like you've got a good
Yeah,
support staff, though, a system in the family who will help you too. And we're happy to
yes.
help. So you referenced Rosa Parks a moment ago. Let's talk a little bit about you and Rosa Parks, how you met each other and what your relationship meant. I think you were not only friends, but roommates.
Yes. Well, I first met Miss Parks on the street in late 60s when I moved to Detroit. We saw her and asked for an autograph. And then that was it. And then the early 80s, one of my good friends started traveling with her. Her name is Elaine Eason Steele. And so then we connected that way. So Miss Parks was a friend of mine from early 80s until she died. And then around 87, my husband and I separated, and I needed a place to go. And she had just moved into a 4-bedroom house. So they asked, would I like to move with her? Would I move in with her? So I said yes. And so one weekend I went over there, just to check things out. And I cooked her some food and everything. And they were laughing because they said they hadn't seen so much food in her refrigerator in ages. But I decided that I would move there. They charged me a very small rent, but they said they wanted me to provide the food and do the cooking. So I got everything. And I'm a Buddhist and she's a Methodist. So I was really worried about whether she'd have problems with me being a Buddhist. And so I asked her, and she said, no. She said, it helped you, and anything that helps you, I have no problem with. But then I had forgotten that she did have connection with a lady from my group in Washington, and that our group had come through on a program, and she participated in the program. I had forgotten all about that. Then eventually, our leader invited her to Japan, and she received an honorary doctorate degree from our university in Japan, Soka University. And then when he came to the United States, she saw him in the United States too. So, but Miss Parks and I shared the house for 7 years, and I moved out because I got married again a second time. So I had to leave her. But shortly after that, I worked for her institute for 3 years, the 3 years before I came to Nashville, and helped them. And I did a lot of health stuff, teaching kids about health and that kind of thing. So she and Elaine Steele co-founded the Rosa Parks Institute, and they had their special program is Pathway to Freedom. And so I work with the kids in the Pathway to Freedom.
Is any of that still in existence now?
Yes, Rosa Parks Institute is still going. It's run by Elaine Eason Steele and Nita Peak, who's her sister. And Nita Peak is the executive director of the Rosa Parks Institute. So they're working real hard to keep her programs going.
Well, that's wonderful. The focus on community and kind of bringing up generations and all of that. I had no idea that you had done some of that work for her too, along with her.
And Ms. Parks and I got along very well because our personalities is very much alike. My birthday is February 3rd and hers February 4th. There was a big difference in our ages though. She was born in 1913 and I was born in 1942. So there was a big difference in our ages, but we got along wonderfully well, wonderfully well. We like to talk and watch TV and read. And I'm known as her nurse because we went to the same holistic doctor. And I think that I referred her to this doctor because I used to work for her a little bit. But when she'd go to see the doctor, she would always bring her little instructions back and give them to me for me to go and shop for her supplements or whatever. So I was known as Rosa Parks nurse. And she did say that after I moved in with her, her health improved. And that was true because I did all the shopping, I cooked and, made sure that she had everything she needed. But when I left Detroit in 1999, she was really declining. And, I hated to leave her, but I wanted to come and take care of my mom.
Well, it sounds like you were such a gift to each other, and certainly you were a gift to her life and to bringing her life to a better place. We have a photo of you and Miss Parks and Harry Belafonte, and I know there's a story behind that.
Oh, oh, you better believe it. Miss Parks and Elaine had been out of state. I think they'd been to Washington, and they went to one of his concerts. And he gave them tickets, telling them that he was going to be in Michigan. And he gave them 4 tickets. So when they got back, they asked, did I want to go? I said, do I want to go? You better believe it. So the day we went, I had my camera. And so we came in, we sat down, and then they came and got us and moved us to the front row. So then after the concert, they came and got us and took us backstage. So I said, Mr. Belafonte, do you mind if I take a picture? Oh, no, fine. He was just really so he got everybody and had them sitting down, and I was taking pictures. Then he said, after I took 3 or 4 pictures, he said, Elaine, now you get up and take pictures so I can get in the picture. So I got, I got in there. It was really exciting. Then at the end, when at the end of our visit, he hugged everybody. So, and I told him, I'm real outspoken. I said, I want a hug and a kiss. So he kissed me, and I said, I'm never going to wash my face again. So back in those days, I would ask for autographs. I don't know why I guess I didn't need an autograph with all those pictures of him. I would ask anybody for autographs, It was fun.
That's a beautiful memory and a beautiful photo. I think that everyone can relate to that. So I want to talk a little bit about family. Your niece Kenyatta speaks of the admiration she has for you as an aunt and as a mother. You suggested that she perform the interview of your life that was recorded when StoryCorps came to Nashville. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we were asked for volunteers for the StoryCorps, and so I volunteered. And I asked, who was going to interview me for it. And Casey said, what about your niece? She had met Kenyatta before, and she was impressed by Kenyatta. She said, what about Kenyatta, your niece? And I said, yeah. I said, she probably would do it. I believe she'll do it. So I called and asked her, and she agreed to do it. And then I wrote down some things, and we went over them a couple of times, and the interview went wonderfully well. But like I said, I haven't had the nerve to listen to it since we did it.
I think we might have to have a listening party sometime and follow up on that just so everyone gets to hear the story. Kenyatta also told me a little bit about you being an entrepreneur. She said that you have such vast knowledge and experience, and she said, just by poking around in her brain, I never know what I'll learn. Will you share a little bit more about your life experience and success as an entrepreneur?
Well, my husband and I started in that field back in the 70s. So we did like 3 companies, and I'm trying to remember, but we did 3 different companies. We made lots of money, number 1. Number 2, we made a trip. We went to Paris one year.
Wow.
Got a trip to Paris with a plane load of people and 3 other planes. 4 plane loads of people went. I won stuff like one year we got a car.
Wow.
House full of furniture, refrigerator, stoves, all those kind of things. So, but I used to travel all over the United States doing training people. We were on a training team. Forever Living Alabama, I believe it was.
Were the companies all tied to like health and nutrition?
The first one we were in, it was mostly cleaning products. And I have to look them up.
Did you also do that in tandem with your day job? So this was like a second career at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worked all through it except for 2 years. 2 years I didn't work, but I had full-time jobs, and on the weekends I'd be on a plane going somewhere. So
good for you.
And sometimes almost every night I would be having some kind of training, teaching people about the business or telling people about the business.
That explains a lot about the person you are today. And I feel like in some ways, the more we talk, the more I see that side of you. But I don't believe I ever would have known that nugget if Kenyatta and I hadn't spoken a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I wrote about it in the writers group, so I'd have to look like I said. Certainty America was one of them too, but I can't remember the third one. And we did 3 different ones over the years. My husband and I were married almost 20 years when we separated, but we were friends until he died.
Oh, that's great.
He was a wonderful man. Mm-hmm.
Tell me about your love for reading. I do think, I see that you have a thirst for knowledge and a thirst for staying busy and being active. And I know that you have been a prolific reader since you were really young. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I don't know how I started reading because my parents didn't read. My dad finished the 3rd grade, and Mama I think she went to the 9th grade. She could have finished college if she wanted to because she was a baby. And my grandmother, her mother, had relatives that had finished college, but she wasn't interested in it. So there wasn't reading around me, but I love reading. And we lived in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee, which is near Dixon. And we had relatives that would come to visit us. And they would always bring newspapers and magazines. And nobody could touch those newspapers and magazines until I'd gone through them. I would go through those magazines and newspapers. I would take stuff out, pictures or articles, and I would paste them in books and stuff. And when I started school, I could read. I didn't start school until I was 7. By the time I was in the 3rd grade, I was reading the 8th grade level. And so all my life, I've loved reading and buying books. I got tons of books in my house now. In the room that we're in, there are 3 bookcases. I've gotten rid of some of the books. In my bedroom, I have 3 bookcases. And I have given away a lot of them already, but I still have tons of them. And I like books about health, self-help stuff. And sometimes, occasionally, I like books about people. But most of my books are health, alternative health, and self-help stuff. My favorite author is Louise Hay. I love her. And then Shark, S-A-R-K, Shark. I like her book. She is interesting in that most of her books are written by hand and her pictures are drawn. She draws her own pictures. And she has some really interesting subjects too.
How neat. I've not heard of her, but we'll have to look her up. If there was one book that would be the last book standing in your house, what would it be?
I am not sure, but something by Louise Hay. I think there's one called "You Can Change Your Life," but I love Louise Hay, and I have to keep those. Louise Hay and Shark, I have to keep, and also another person. I tell you, another person is Iana Van Zandt. She's a wonderful writer too. She's a wonderful writer. I may have to go with one of her books too.
That's good. We'll let you go with 2. We're going to let you launch a book club and enlighten all of us. Tell us a little bit about your big family and your roots, maybe a little something about your mom and dad and what made Ossie the person she is today.
Well, my mother and my dad married when she was 20 and he was 26. He's from a big family, 10 kids. He was 12 years old when his mother died. And his father married again, and the stepmother did not like him. So at age 14, he took out on his own, and he made it, and at that day and time, you could look at a white person the wrong way and you could get killed, but he got out there and he survived and, took care of himself at age 14. And the thing that I learned from him is work hard, work and take care of yourself. And he did that and he got along with people. And he used to say how, he was treated as a kid. But then later on, he had lots of friends that wasn't the same color as he, And then he moved to Nashville, and I was born in Nashville. My mom was born in Lynchburg, Tennessee, and she's the youngest of 10 kids. And she could have gone, like I said, she could have gone to college and done anything she wanted to. because she had all these older siblings, but she wasn't interested. And she moved to Nashville, and that's where she met my dad. My mother's mother lived until I was a teenager. Her father died when I was 4 years old, so I didn't get to know him very well. My dad's mother died, of course, when he was 12, but his father lived until I think I was 17 or 18 when he died. And he was a lovely man, wonderful man, hardworking man, farmer. So my family is, hard workers, and most of them were on both sides were farmers. And I was born in Nashville, but then we moved to Cumberland Furnace, and that's where I lived until I was about 12 years old, and then we moved back to Nashville. But we went to a one-room schoolhouse. My first year of school, though, I went and stayed with my grandmother in Lynchburg, Tennessee. And of course, she spoiled me. She and my uncle, she had a son living with her, and they spoiled me like rotten. When I got ready to go to second grade, I went back home, and then my siblings and I would walk to school. I have a sister that's, when I turned 1 year old, she was born in November. So we were real close.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And we had two brothers, 2 years after she was born, that we looked after. Because one time we walked to school every day, and one day this boy gave my brother, one of my brothers, he thought chocolate candy, but it was a laxative.
Oh, no.
And so we beat him up. My sister and I both beat him up. He didn't bother us no more. He didn't bother. But we took care of each other.
Oh, my goodness. Well, being the oldest of 8, you would have a lot of those maternal instincts, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Your niece shared a bit about you always caring about everyone's well-being, and to me that fits into that package of...
Yeah. Yeah, once I got old enough to work, I did things like clean people's houses, babysit. So I always had some money. And I always made sure that, I could get their little things for them. I would buy candy for them. I would buy stuff for the birthdays. So, I always like for them to have a special day, birthday. And I always, I had to do things like wash the dishes and help them with their homework. My mother started working when I was in the ninth grade. So I had to come home, right home, and be home and take care of the kids. I had to see that they studied. I had to see they had their dinner. I had to see that they had their bath. Study, have the bath, and be in the bed when she came home at 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Oh, and have the dishes washed and the kitchen floor clean. So by the time she got home, I was worn out, and trying to study my lesson. But, I did that. And one year, the kids, every time they get ready to get something to drink, they would get a new glass. So there was always lots of glasses. So I said, I got to fix this. So I went to the store and I bought each of them a cup, their own cup, and then set them up in the kitchen window. And so everybody had their own cups, and that's the way I solved that problem. But I was always doing things.
Today they have those little markers that go on glasses. You can put like little stick on things or little charms that go on glasses. And just think, you were an entrepreneur then and you didn't even know it. Think of the money you could have made had you branded that and gotten it in the market. So Kenyatta told me something about you always caring about the well-being of others, and that has influenced her to do the same. And I think it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about what it's like now for you to accept help when you need it from others.
Well, it's hard for me to ask for help, number one, and number two, it's hard for me to accept it. But I know I have to, and I tell everybody, thank you, I appreciate it, and sometimes I want to give them something, and my sister Shirley said the other day, she said, you don't have to give me nothing. She said, you did all kind of stuff for me. But I like doing things, and I used to take them places and do things with them. And like I said, birthday parties and, that kind of stuff. And I had never had a birthday party. And my family decided when I turned 50, they were going to give me a birthday party. And so I was living in Michigan. And so they decided to give me a birthday party. Kenyatta's father was the head of it. And he did all the cooking and stuff. He does cook, he does that for a living. And so when they planned it and told me when it was going to be, I told my coworkers, I said, now I want to go to, for my birthday party, they're going to have a birthday party for me. And I told them when. And I said, I got to lose some weight because I'm too big. They should see me now. I said, I'm too big. So I started on a diet. And eventually I had everybody in the office that was overweight on the diet. They were all following me. And do you know when my birthday party came, Miss Parks and Elaine came from California.
Oh,
I think 8 of my coworkers came from Detroit to my party.
oh. Boy, that doesn't surprise me knowing you, but that's just so beautiful. That's amazing. I can't imagine you being a large woman. You are the tiniest little thing right now.
I know and they really worried about me too. That I guess that's one reason I don't want to go to the center. I'm walking with a walker, and then I'm skinny now. But when I got married the second time, I weighed 180,
On your frame, that's unbelievable.
20 pounds from 200.
So what was your secret to weight loss?
Eating right, eating more vegetables, and I've never been a big meat eater. I was used to eating vegetarian meals, and when I married my first husband, he was a vegetarian. So I was a vegetarian cook, and I have been a vegetarian cook for decades. But I would eat a little bit of meat, you had some spaghetti with a little beef in it, I eat that. I'll eat a chicken wing, every now and then. A little cut up chicken in a salad or something. And fish, I like fish, but I didn't cook any meat. I think in my life, I've cooked 2 turkeys.
Oh, my.
First turkey, my mother was visiting me, and I had to let her do it because I couldn't do it. I got sick trying to stuff the turkey.
Well, there is a learning curve with that. There is a turkey is a big bird. Do you have a mentor or someone who influenced you to become the person you are today?
I'm going to say my mom. My mom was a very loving person. She was a hard worker. She loved her children. Sometimes she would want to spoil us too much, But we were always very respectful and loving to her too. So she loved cooking for us and that kind of thing. She was a good example, and she kept a good house, kept things neat, and she was careful with her money and that kind of thing. And at the end, anything she wanted or we thought she wanted, we got it for her. We took good care of her. So, I feel very good about what I did for her.
That caregiving and the circle of life, when we end up caring for our parents or our elders, it's a real special thing, isn't it?
Yes. And Daddy taught me to work, and all of us worked hard all our lives.
So I have one question that we ask all of our guests, and it really relates to the advice that you might have got from someone in your past that rings true to you today, maybe from a parent or an older adult. Is there something like that in your life?
I can't think of anything. My dad was a good example and my mother was a good example, and so we followed them. Our personalities are different, but they taught us good moral standards and good work standards. But I can't think of anything that they said to me that I didn't believe at the time or take seriously at the time.
That's still, I think, very interesting, and I know parents definitely model behavior, and most of the times on the good behavior, you hope that your children will pick up on that. Sometimes on the not so good behavior, you hope they don't.
And I think the thing that leads me on is taking responsibility for my life and what I do. A lot of people want to blame other people and circumstances for what happens. But everything that happens to you is a lesson, You can look at it and say, what could I have done different? Why did this happen to me? What did I do to make this happen to me? So I think, people need to take responsibility for things that happen to them. And then I want to continue learning and doing things. Like right now, I can't drive my car. I don't have courage and strength to drive it right now, but, I'm visualizing myself getting back in my car driving and learning new stuff. And about 4 years ago, I decided I wanted to learn how to draw and paint. Because when I was a kid, I wanted to do it. And so I went down to, it was 1915. I mean, not 1915, 2015. I wasn't even born then. 2015. 2015, I went down to Centennial Art Center. And I
Oh,
met a wonderful lady down there, and so painted and learned how to draw. And I said I was going to start drawing again because I looked at some of my paintings the other day, and I remember how much fun it was doing them. So I'm going to start doing that again. But I think that there's always, as long as you're living, there's something for you to learn. I never want to stop learning.
that is beautiful. And I had no idea you were taking the classes at Centennial Arts. What's your favorite medium right now that you've used when you've been in an art class? Acrylics or watercolor?
Acrylics we use. I bought a drawing course, and I think I want to do that.
That's great. Well, we'll set up an easel for you if you want to come back to the center. I'll bring you grapes and carrots and celery.
I'll be back. I know the word is going around that I will not be back, and that is not true. I never told him that I would not coming back. I just right now I don't feel up to doing it.
Sure.
But I just keep working and keep praying.
Yeah, you'll get back there. We're rooting for you and praying as well.
Okay.
So I have one more question to ask you. What is it that you do to squeeze the day?
I think trying to relax and listen to music. Music brings me joy, and that's one thing I like to do, listen to music. I'm trying to cut down on TV watching. I watch too much TV, I know. And but I'm practicing sitting down or relaxing and thinking about things and going inside.
Is there a certain kind of music that you love best?
No, I like a whole bunch. I like the old singers, Barry White, those kinds. I like some of the new guys, and then I like classical music too.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a lot of relaxation stuff, nature sounds and music. So I have a whole variety. I may go in and put 4 Barry Whites in. I may put a whole bunch of 4 Carpenters in. I may put the Bee Gees in. I may do some classical music, or I may mix them up. So it just depends. But I love music, and that's one thing that brings me joy.
Well, that's wonderful. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. At Ossie specifically, I'd like to thank you for telling your story. You've led such an amazing life of leadership, and the interviews and the stories we're hearing are so inspirational. Thank you for sharing yours.
You're welcome.
Now, we challenge everyone to go squeeze the day.